Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Mindful Love, Change, and Acceptance podcast. Today we're talking about Inside Out, the movie, Inside Out 1 and 2,
Yes. I'm
emotional stuff.
super excited. How are you? You can't say good.
Well, we just started lagging as soon as you started talking. What happened? Can you hear me good? Hello, hello, hello.
Yes. You started lagging.
Oh, okay.
You're lagging.
I don't know who it was. Like you froze, I froze, whatever. That's a great start to the thing. I'm doing okay. I don't know. I just been like feeling a little bit fucking tired like the last like 2 3 days. Um, I catch myself not as being as motivated for some reason in the last fucking like
Mm,
week or so,
mm.
or probably longer, like the last 2 weeks. I went on this fucking rampage of being super motivated, super productive, waking up at 5 in the morning,
Ooh,
going to the gym, putting all the effort into the pictures, into everything else. And I was like, I think like my body's like, fuck you already.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, you need to chill. Well, but yeah, I'm trying to get back into it. I'm trying to find the balance, trying to pay attention to what the heck is going on and try to find the answer, which is the thing that always keeps me hopeful and it keeps me going is that like, oh, I'm trying something. Like the fact that I'm paying attention, I'm trying something else is like, okay, that's a good sign. I'm trying to I'm trying something. Like this something's not working, let me try this, let me try that.
Mhm.
And slowly I think just finding balance, I think more than anything. Uh yeah, acceptance and all that stuff. It's working. I think that's what it is. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. How are you doing today?
I'm I think I'm feeling full but in a good way. Like I think um emotionally because we are talking about Inside Out. I watched both of them back to back today.
Uh-huh.
And I was just a fucking mess after. I was just like gushing and bawling um and it was nice. We'll get into it a little bit, but just feeling full, very very grateful to have all these emotions and to embrace them all because I'm a very deeply feeling human with any emotion that comes about. So, yeah, I'm
Nice, nice.
grateful that I get to feel them
All
all.
right. So now we have a couple episodes out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Like
Yes, please.
my daughter's freaking things, stuff that she watches. Yeah, it's been yeah. So yeah, as always, here's the email. If you guys have any questions, any suggestions, any complaints, any topics, you want to be a guest, mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com, mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com, and then here is our mission statement.
did we
I was like, "Are
did
you
we
saying it?
both
I said it. I got it if you want."
go
Our
for
goal is
it?
to create a safe space for exploring mental health topics, sharing stories, and learning strategies for well being, fostering empathy, understanding, growth, and most importantly, love. So that's what we're
Love.
trying to achieve. Just a reminder, Norma is a therapist practicing family, relationship, all that stuff. So if you're looking for somebody, you can hit her up. I am on the process of learning this thing too. I'm getting better. I'm going
Yes.
little by little. Yeah. So if you need anything, go ahead and reach out. As always, even though, I mean, to either of us, if you ever need anything, just know it's always important to be a safe person for other people. And if you can't find anybody in your life for the, in the meanwhile, like go ahead and reach out to us. We're always here to help out. You're never
Yes.
alone. You
Yes.
are never alone. All right. So today, obviously, Inside Out is all about emotions, right? I made
Mhm.
a note last time that I was gonna talk about something that happened to me, about how I handle this specific emotion, and that's how we're gonna open it up with, and then we'll get
Yes, you did mention
the
that.
into the episode. Um, I recently s- found out somebody had the same struggle as me, um, about needing um, needing the same love that I needed from one of my parents when I was younger, right? Like, and even now you see that. And somebody told me like, oh, this person attaches himself to this mother figure because they also lack that relationship, kind of like you did, and it like fucked me up right away. Like it just like I felt empathy, I felt compassion, I felt the sadness. I felt like, oh shit, you're just like me, and it made me cry on the spot. And like
Mm.
I was very sentimental. I dealt with it. I gave it the space and time. I didn't care about um who was around, who was not around, who was watching me, whatever the fuck. I just felt that. Um and yeah, like I gave it the whole space and time. Then I felt better. And then a few days later, I just randomly, like, I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but like being cold and feeling like the cold wind gives me peace somehow. It makes me at peace. It makes me feel good when it's cold. So you can see how I'm struggling with this fucking heat all the time now. Uh, it's the complete opposite. So yeah, it was cold that day. I just decided to go for a walk, and I was enjoying the shit out of myself, like alone, walk on my own, alone, and I was just like, I'm gonna go for a walk, and yeah, and then somebody called me and it was like, hey, how you doing? I was like, I'm doing fucking great, actually. She's like, you sure? Because you were crying that other time, and I saw you. I don't want to say anything, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing great. She's like, that person was like, you want to talk about it? It's like, nah, not really. I don't want to talk about it now. And it was like, okay, hung up, whatever. I had a other personal conversation, hung up. And then I was like, oh shit. Like this is what a healthy fucking way to deal with it is, because I don't carry it with me. That
Mhm.
feeling, that emotion wasn't like put in the back of my mind. I felt it. I gave it its time. I processed it. I understood it. Everything what did what needed to do, to the point that I didn't carry that burden or that unprocessed emotion with me. So it's just an observation that I made. It was like, oh, that's why I thought it was and I think the movie is pretty much about that. So
Mhm.
to kind of share a personal story and how what the movie's gonna get into, as you'll see in a little bit if you haven't seen it.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. I love that for you. I fucking love that. I'm so proud of you. Not that you need me to be proud of you. Be proud of yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back, a hug, because um we've been talking about this, right? As a man being able to express emotion, be vulnerable in front of people that don't necessarily understand can
Mhm.
be difficult, right? So the fact that you are doing that and just being like, this is what it is, this is what's coming up, and I'm going to allow myself to just be in this space. I fucking love that for you. So good
Mhm.
shit.
Thank you,
Good
thank you.
shit.
I have another side note for it. That's something that I do. That kind of goes with the same thing. I don't know. It kind of felt so. After that sadness, something else happened where I saw happiness and a behavior that I usually see in a certain person in my life. That it was just completely like happy and shit and enjoying themselves. So I'm literally watching the person that they first talked about, and then I looked at the other person that is having like the time of their life at the same time, right? And then I was like, oh, every time I want to remember something, I like make a note of like, this is important. I want to capture this in my brain. I want to have this memory. So then I shifted from one emotion to the other one, still being very emotional. And then it was a cry of happiness to see that person that it wasn't usually this happy and this carefree, to see them enjoying themselves to that level. It was like, that was cool. I
Mm.
also, well, it was like a different thing. I allowed myself to be emotional, as allow myself to feel the sadness, and then it shifted to like extreme happiness and crying of happiness to see that other person, just being happy, and thought it was cool. And I don't know if other people do that. I just wanted to point that out. Like I make a note of like, this is important, or I
Yeah.
want to remember this, and I take like a step back and I just sit there and I fully just enjoy it and
Mhm.
watch it and just look at it and be like, okay, cool, that's cool.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess getting into the movie, right? Of if we look at Inside Out, that is essentially what it is, right? Like it is the emotions there, and they have like the control panel,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're all kind of like, oh shit, like what is uh the best way to handle it with Riley as a kiddo.
Mm-hmm.
Um but one of the emotions, right, joy is the one that's like, no, no, no. Like we It's like the intro of the movie is like, oh yeah, like I am joy and I make sure my job is to keep Riley happy. um and we going to discuss, then, oh, discuss job is to keep Riley safe from like foods, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um stuff like that, or like fear keeps her safe. Like she's playing whatever, jumping over the cord, and it's like, okay, is this safe? Is this okay?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to like sadness specifically, it's like, and there's sadness. I don't really know what her job is. Like, I don't really understand it, but she's like there. And a lot of what the movie um, is there are certain emotions that we are allowed to shift from and to,
Mm-hmm.
pero hay otras que no, right? Like there's other ones that aren't, like sadness. That is one that I think as a society overall is one that we don't necessarily allow ourselves to have so much.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you are having these shifts, going from one to the next, that is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the word normal, so I won't say normal. And that is a very healthy thing to do, because as we talked in past episodes, emotions are temporary, right? So then you're crying, you're feeling this sadness, understanding it, processing it, and once you're able to flush that out of your body, then you shift into something else, which is joy, still with tears, which is okay to express it that way, and also taking that in, processing it. So kudos to you, my friend. Look at you
Thank you.
doing
Thank
the work.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, awesome. I have my own notes, and we can go back and forth, right? Because I know you had notes for the
Mhm.
movies, and I have my own notes and stuff. I think it starts with like, I think the first thing that they say is like, what's going on in someone's head. Like that's like the first opening line of the first Inside Out movie, and that's like a question that we've been kind of talking about, and something that I always look for and learning about. Like, how do I get you to um, look within yourself, or how do I help you to see that and all that, you know? So
Mhm.
it's cool as a very good introduction, I think, to over emotions overall. You know, how they, like, you see that they look into her mind, and then they see all the different emotions there and all that. So
They,
that was very good, kind of like
mhm.
very good for them to see that, you know.
Yeah.
And even at the point after with the girls, because we saw them with the girls, it was like, oh, now it's like pointing it out. It's like, oh, your anger is in control, your sadness is under control, your fears under control, and all that, you know. I think is a great way to visualize it, because I've been doing some of that with the girls, and um, to try to show them, and now to reference that, it helps out, right? Because you have something visual, something that they can see, that is like, oh yeah, it's just like that now. Like he's been trying to tell me, but it doesn't really make sense about talking about the mind. But to see something that represents it, I think is really well done by whoever
Yes.
made the movie.
Yes. Yes. And there is one of the things that I appreciate about Pixar in general is they really do they do the research, right? So with Inside Out, they did some research around it. It is very like neuroscience like rooted. So a lot of like the things that they talk about is not just like, oh, they just came up with it like from a imaginary place. But they did have, I think someone from Berkeley.
Mm.
um it's um it's a doctor who actually was like behind the scenes talking about how the brain worked. So a lot of it that we see on there is actually scientifically backed up. For my friend Steve, who uses the logic and is like, prove it to me with science. There is science behind Inside Out, y'all. It's proven.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
One of the first things that, as I was rewatching it today, because it is about a girl who moves from Minnesota to San Francisco. I have, side note, completely maybe not necessarily with emotions, but I hate that they depicted San Francisco in such a negative light. Like when it puts like Minnesota, it's so like colorful and green, and then you go to San Francisco and it's so gray. All of the scenery, I'm like, San Francisco's not like that. But anyway, um, so when she moves, right, like when she gets to the new place, and she's going through all of these fucking emotions, um, Joy is kind of like, holy shit, like as she's looking at the panel and seeing most days they're all like yellow because she's uh the yellow emotion. Most of them are yellow, and then they sent them over to long-term memory. But that day specifically, when they actually got to San Francisco, it was like all of them, but no, almost no yellow. And she's like, what the fuck, like there must be something wrong. Like I have to do something to make sure that Riley goes back to being happy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then mom comes in, when she's like, okay, come say goodnight. Mom comes in and says, so these, we had talked about like the messages that we get from when we are young, and they kind of shape the subjective experience that we give the emotions, right? And like those messages.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that mom says was, dad is stressed out, like he's going through a lot. So it would be really helpful if we keep smiling, if you and I keep smiling, right? So then she had
Mm.
all these fucking emotions throughout the day, and then mom comes in and it's like, yeah, like don't those, we ain't gonna do those. We need joy. We need happiness because dad needs that. So no fucking pressure on the kid's shoulders, right? This human is 12. Um, was it 11, 12? When she
I've been,
moved to.
I don't remember. I think it might have been younger because then the second one, remember, she's like in middle school now.
Oh,
Maybe a little bit less.
maybe
I don't
less.
know. But the point is pre-puberty, pretty young, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, but
Mm.
the parents sometimes and without it's not that mom had a bad intention, right, of wanting her to not feel her emotions, and I'm sure she was trying to be helpful to her husband, to her kiddo, but just saying like, hey, dad is overloaded with shit, let's like lessen the load or carry some of the load by um smiling. And I'm like, fuck, like how many of us grow up like that with all of those messages within our uh, Latino community, right? Like that is a lot what goes on. No estés
Yeah.
llorando, no eres un niño chiquito, right? Como agarra el pedo, póngase chingón. And that fucking sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Because not, once again, it's the root of the fucking problem at the end of the day,
Mhm.
right? It's the root of the problem of not allowing ourselves to feel the full range of emotions that we need to feel. Um, yeah, that's where it all starts. I've always said that, but made that realization of like, oh, yeah, that thing of like, you fell, get up. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't cry. Don't cry. I was like, fuck you. I want to cry. What the fuck? You know, what the shit is that?
I
So yeah,
know.
so try not to, definitely, yeah, just try not to do that with the girls as much as I can. When I, even though it's like a habit sometimes, but then I catch
Mhm.
myself to be like, oh no, it's okay. And then becoming much more sensitive to whenever they're feeling something to just do that, you know. I
Yeah.
think before it was about that, about making it trying to continue the fucking joy, which is like after when I watched the movie after like 20 minutes, I'm like, Joy, you son of a bitch, you're the fucking villain in the thing. It's all your fault.
You're the problem, bitch.
Yeah, you're the problem, you know. But yeah, it's you can see that. I mean, because I don't want to overstep in maybe what you have going on, but I just kind of, that was one of the things that popped up in my head right away. Is like, well, yeah, the fact that you're later on, right? Like as you said, she just dismisses sadness. I don't know what the fuck you're doing, and then
Mhm.
somehow doesn't let her do anything and just kind of like pushing her away. It's kind of like the whole issue, the whole problem. And I can tell. I was like, because I'm aware of my shit, and I think critically and all that stuff. I was like, oh, I see where this is going. And the more it goes on, I was like, you fucking Joy, like just let it, like let it be, damn it. And I think that's the connection that you make to society and to her parents is that, right? Like Joy had no intention of hurting Riley, or didn't even know that what the role that sadness played. But that's what society does to us. It's the same thing, right?
Mhm.
It's the
Mhm.
exact same thing of like you're just being positive. And as you remember, there was distractions, right? There was ways to distract her, like, oh, she's feeling this, like, no, fuck that, give her like a good memory for her to remember on, and just
Mhm.
distracting her um from dealing from what was happening.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the things that I was watching it and my mom, shout out to my mama, saludos pa mi madre. La estamos viendo and then she's like, ya ves, Natalie? Por eso, por eso son, I don't remember exactly what she said, um, pero por eso, ya ves lo que pasa con las emociones. And I'm like, okay, mom. I literally stopped the movie. Paré la película y le dije, okay, mamá, ¿por qué está pasando todo esto? Porque it was already like the part where Joy and Sadness got sucked into it and got sent to outside of headquarters.
Mhm.
And so I like stopped it right there, right? Y le dije a mi mamá, ¿por qué está pasando todo esto? Y se quedó, cuando pausé the movie, se quedó así como de, oh, fuck, like, here comes this bitch with all her bullshit, right?
Mhm.
That's the message that my brain told me. Take accountability on that. Pero sí se quedó así, dice, no sé, no la estaba viendo, no puse atención. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, you made your comment. Let's actually like sit with it y explore it. Yo, ¿por
Mm.
qué está pasando todo esto? Y dice, no sé, no, I'm not sure. Y ya dices que no vi qué pasó. I'm like, regardless, like, even if you didn't see what happened exactly, ¿qué fue lo que causó que se fueran, like, outside of headquarters? Y dice, pues es que Joy quiere que siempre esté feliz. And I'm like, exactly. Like, joy is the fucking problem. When you don't give space to all of the emotions,
Mhm.
turmoil happens in your head, mom. And she, like, se me queda viendo así. Is le muerde a su tortilla porque estaba comiendo, ¿no? Y, oye, sí es cierto, sí es cierto. Le digo, ah, ¿verdad? Entonces, no es la emoción como tal, pero cuando una emoción no deja hacer el trabajo de las demás, that's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
That is why it's so important to let all of our emotions come and go, right?
Mhm.
So in the movie, avoiding sadness literally brings turmoil into Riley's head.
Yeah. Because is that, like you said, like maybe because of what the mom said or whatever, she's not allowing all those changes and all the sadness to be felt, like
Mhm.
moving, then the fucking pizza thing. I'm trying to, like, both of the movies are very similar, and it's kind of mashing up in my head as one thing because they're very similar, right? I think the second one just addresses anxiety more, but it's very similar. But just those changes that are happening, yeah, the moving of the thing, and yeah, it's just not allowing the sadness to be felt, or the truck, like her stuff missing, right, and all that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you're like, yo, that's fucking crazy. And just Joy's like, sadness, get the fuck out of here, like, you don't
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Like, no.
let's try to be super positive and all that. And that was another thing that I thought about, was like that toxic positivity, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Good
it's just
vibes
like,
only.
yeah, that's overwhelming, and like, it's just not, it's not healthy. It's not
It's
healthy.
not. People, please don't do it. Don't do it when you say good vibes only. Like, no, all the vibes. all
Hmm.
the vibes.
Yeah, it's
Because
okay to
they,
feel everything.
yes, it is okay to feel
Yeah, yeah.
everything.
I have a personal another story.
Hmm.
There's also something. One of my family members is ill, and the response that I've seen on how the family is handling it hasn't been the best. And if you guys are listening, because a lot of you speak English, welcome. Um, hasn't been the best, right? So uh, I've noticed that, and we talked about it with my wife, and it's like, okay, well, let's try to help out in what we think is the right way and the right way to do it. And that person is struggling with that positivity of like, come on, you gotta try your best. Come on, what are you doing? Come on, let's go outside. Come on, let's do this. Come on, you gotta try. You gotta do this. Why aren't you doing this? Why don't you do more? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And that person was telling me that because we're developing a relationship, I really didn't have a relationship before this. Seeing the person more often and shit, and it's like, oh yeah, they just told everybody to fuck off, and now everybody's mad at me. And I was like, oh, that's understandable. Like, if you're feeling attacked and if you're feeling like they're not understanding you in the right way, it's like completely fine for you to have said that. But that was an example. Like I just saw as I was watching it this time around, I was like, I just saw that direct correlation where everybody's just trying to be ultra fucking positive, ultra positive, and just pushing and do this and do that. And it was like, well, that's not okay, So I knowingly, purposely went and I spent time with that person. I was like, oh, I'll just sit here and just be different. How you doing? What's the thing? What's that? And then the person started opening up, and then just it was a different experience that I know what everybody's trying to give her, and I validated her emotions. We talked about the movie, and we talked about that stuff. That it was like, oh, it's okay. Like it's okay for you to do this. For okay for you to feel whatever you want, and just kind of working at it little by little, because that person did struggle with mental health problems in the past. Where it had kind of like me with that when I shut down for like a couple of months, I couldn't function. That person went through that as well. So then I was like, okay, so you have some awareness, maybe some idea. I don't know how they were able to move on from that or how they dealt with that situation. I don't think that yeah, they didn't go to therapy. Um, but yeah, it was just trying to be a different, giving it a different approach. And it's
Mhm.
understandable. Like I said, at the same time, I understand the rest of the family trying to be that. They're not trying to cause any harm, but it's just like, well, you're doing the opposite. Just like anything, maybe you do need that, but you need everything at the same time, right? You just need understanding. Like you don't you maybe you do need to be pushed a little bit, but not all the fucking time to the point that it just ends up blowing out like that. And that's what we can see how most of us, I think by default, I just thought to just go and be positive and come on, get up, or you're doing with this or échale ganas and all that shit. And it's like, yeah,
Échale ganas, el echaleganismo, dude, and oh my god.
yeah.
Um, and maybe I'm going to hopefully I'll like get it right with you. But um, do you know? I'm sure you know Tenoch from
You
uh,
mean Namor? You mean the one of the pops that's back here somewhere?
Sin
I've bought.
Amor.
Yeah, Namor. I've had
Um,
a yeah. That's the only pop I bought in like 3 years. By the way, I used to have like 1,000, and those are like the ones that are left.
mm,
Yes, I know
okay.
the much. Yeah.
So that is one of the things that he also talks about el echaleganismo, no, dice yo no creo en el echaleganismo, ¿no? Porque es esta parte de la the toxic positivity thing, and I'm like that too. When somebody like tells me like échale ganas, my grandma, te amo abuela, pero si a veces me dice no mija, usted puede con todo, usted échale ganas, and I literally have to like look at her, I'm like grandma, le digo, abuelita, no quiero echarle ganas ahorita. Ahorita quiero llorar, ahorita quiero desbordarme, ahorita quiero sentir.
Yeah.
Ah, bueno, bueno, o sea, sí, tienes razón, ¿no? Sí, es importante que seas, que sientas or whatever, right? Pero like
Yeah.
I have to remind her, otherwise she's going to constantly be telling me to echarle ganas. And a similar thing happens in the movie, right? Because then when they find Bing Bong somewhere in the travesty of it all, right? Of and joy is constantly doing that, right? Like with sadness of, oh my god, like let me make sure you are happy so that we can find our way back to headquarters, right? And that one word that we use in emotionally focused therapy is attunement. You have to attune to the person, like match their energy, match them where they're at. So joy is very misattuned with sadness, because sadness is just like, I just want to be sad, and joy's like, no, 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 like don't be sad, don't be sad. So she doesn't sit with that, with her in that. So when they find like Bing Bong, like Bing Bong's trying to like help them, this and that, whatever. And when he loses his card that he was going to use to take Riley to the moon, he's very sad about it. And here comes Joy with "Tu échale ganas," right? And I'm like, no, 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 like think of all the things, like all the good things. And he's just like bawling. And then Joy's like, oh my God, come on, just like échale ganas, dude. We need to get back to headquarters. I need you to get your shit together.
Hmm.
But because she wasn't meeting him where he was at, that was not working, right? And sadness comes in. It's like, yeah, that can be sad, right? And just kind of sits there with him and just kind of like validates whatever it is that he's going through, because he was so excited to take Riley to the moon. Um, and as soon as she attunes with him, meets him where he's at, he's like, I feel better now. I
Yeah.
can go. I can go on.
Yeah. That was and that's honestly like relate a lot to that, and like I talk about my own personal growth because that's what it's been for me. Like I think that was, I saw that clip of Bing Bong and Sadness a while ago before even watching the movie. I don't know how long ago, 1 2 years ago, however long it might have been, and then that made sense. And it was like the very first clip that I saw. I was like, oh, I kind of see where that's how that worked, and I kind of see how that works, because my thing was very, because once again, like I talked about it last time, that's how I was taught. Like, these are the systems, this is how it works, this is what you need to do, this is what's working, and that's my approach a lot of the time. And like you said, meeting the people at the time, and I was like, oh, that's that's very powerful to know that, to see that as well, that that works just as well. There's people where that would gonna make sense. That is what they need. They don't need any of the knowledge, any of the change part of the title of the podcast. They just need that love and acceptance, and to be like, yeah, it must have sucked. And yeah,
Mhm.
that fucking clip alone, we don't know what the copyright or the shit might happen if we share anything, so we don't want to share it because we could have shared it. But that clip alone, I think, started my journey of understanding that, and
Mhm.
literally is how I think about, like, now with the girls, is like something happens, and before it was that thing of explaining, and I was like, oh yeah, that must have been tough. Or yeah, yeah. So like, I don't remember if I talked about it or not, but I'll be quick about it. Like, we went to see, I'm very much getting into the UFC now, to like MMA fighting. And
Mm.
one of the fights, Mia was with me watching it, and the girl got elbowed, and her cut was like super big above her eyebrow, like the entire eyebrow. And then it was like one of the nastiest fucking cuts I seen. So like, it opened up a lot, like very thick. So Mia just freaked the fuck out.
I'm
And then
freaking the fuck out, and now I
yeah,
haven't even seen that.
yeah. So she freaked the fuck. We're at a restaurant, and a huge screen is there and shit. So like, she saw it super big, so she got super scared because she's never seen it. So I failed for a little bit and went back to my default of explaining, oh, this is what's happening,
Hold
to
on, hold on,
play it
hold on.
back.
Let's uh, 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 uh. We ain't
What's
doing
up,
that
bro?
here, hun. Literally, we're not doing that right now. Let's
Doing what?
let's let's what are we doing that? I failed for a little bit.
Well, that's how I like to think about it, because then I kind of like got it afterwards.
Yeah,
um
okay, but part of that love, change, and acceptance, right? Okay, I defaulted to my old ways. That is okay. You didn't
yeah,
fail.
yeah, because I paid attention, so I was explaining to her, right? Because I do a lot of explaining when things are happening out of default stuff. And then I saw that, and I was like, this is like, I see her getting a little bit better, but it's not working. And then I was like, oh, okay, remember this. And then I was like, oh, yeah, it must have been scary, huh? I remember when it was scary, because
Yes.
I also, like, I remember when the first time I saw something like that, it was also scary to me, So I can understand why it's scary to you. And like, yeah, something like similar happened to me like when I was little, and I cut in, and like I showed her a scar on my knee. She's like, yeah, my knee looked like that. She's like, really, it looked like that? I was like, yeah, that's what it looked like her face. But yeah, it's okay. You can take your time and cry, you know. I can understand that must have been tough for you since you've never seen it before. And then she does this shit when she's at peace and she's happy, where she bounces. Like she just goes like that with her body, like she's just there and she does that. So then I'm there and we're trying to have a conversation because there was other people, and then I see her giving her time. I'm still kind of like hugging her a little bit, and then I just I guess paid attention to the conversation, and I look back and she's doing her little bouncing. I literally, I don't know, because if Celia can hear what I was doing, because Celia was sitting across from me, I randomly just asked Celia to give me a high five. Like I just went and I was like, give me a fucking high five. She didn't even know what the fuck, but I was like, I just need to like once again remember this shit of like, oh, it worked. I took a long time in the other one trying to explain to her, but then as soon as I did that and I made her feel seeing it that it was okay, then it was scary and all that stuff, and it was like okay. And then she asked me, and then done, and then like she started like a couple minutes later, she started doing a little bouncing. I was like, good. I'm like, okay, I got it. Like I handled it properly, and I was proud. I was like, okay, you did it the right way, you know.
Yes, yes. That is a lot of again what it is that we are needing. And I think the more and more that we become aware of that, um I think a lot of parents now, I have the privilege of witnessing different sets of parents do um, whether whatever you want to call it, respectful parenting, conscious parenting, gentle parenting, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of that part of validation, connecting before disciplining, and really seeing those parents like you and Celia being a couple that I get to witness doing that, is it's so cool, because then um, that gives me hope for future generations, right? Of like that part of accepting, and it's okay
Mhm.
to feel my feelings, like when the things that you've shared with Mia, of when she says like, it's okay, mommy, for you to be sad, for you to cry, one of the things that another couple, they're teaching their baby, it's so cute, he's only 2, and they're teaching him physical boundaries, like, because we're also like so used to dale un beso porque es la tía and stuff like that. So they're teaching him that he doesn't have to engage in physical uh, contact, affection, if he doesn't want to. So they, both of the parents, taught him to say like, stop, it's my body, I don't like, or stop, I don't like that, it's my body, wherever I say goes. And he obviously can't say the whole thing, right? But like it is so cute when he like even me, like I've catch myself like just like going in for the hug and like kissing him, and he goes like that, and like I have to like remind myself, and I'm like, oh, you didn't like that, like tell me stop. And he's like, stop, my body, I say goes. And I love that, because every time he does that, I'm like, you set your boundaries, baby. We love that. We love that for you. Um,
Mhm.
so that definitely gives me hope for future generations. So all that to say, thank you,
Yeah.
Steve, for the beautiful work you're doing with your babies.
We're trying. Yeah, over here we just say respect my boundaries. Respect my boundaries. That's what Celia tells the girls all the time.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Whatever works. Yes, I
Hmm.
like that. Um, okay.
What you got next?
I'm looking here at my notes.
Did you talk about the personality islands? That was a that's like a big one for me when I first saw it.
Oh, tell me about it. I actually did not include them on here. I think I just focus more on like the part of like the emotion, but tell me more.
Yeah, so when they're talking about the personality islands, they see the family, the goofball one, the friendship, and like honesty island, and all of those. And whenever as the movie goes on, they start dying, right? They start shutting down
Mhm.
because she's not feeling like herself anymore, or at least that's how I interpret it. Because all that shit happened to me when I was going through that those tough times with my mental health of anxiety and depression. But everything starts dying. Nothing mattered. Especially I want to say with depression, if it was like, you know, the same thing as sadness, nothing matters. Nothing makes nothing. You don't want to do anything, and you see that who you are and your personality like literally start to die down, like the personality traits that you see that, like the inability to connect with family because I couldn't just even connect with myself or anything. Like, and you see that suffering, the goofballness, the making jokes, the doing those things because I'm so in myself and I'm not paying attention and I'm not being myself, that went away. Same thing with friendship, not reaching out to people. So all I like saw everything literally like 100% relating to those things. Like, this is
Mhm.
true. This is exactly what the fuck happens when you do that, you know? When you don't address it, when you are struggling with whatever might be going on, and this is exactly what happens. You just, all the connections, your personality, your everything just kind of goes away. um and it's hard for me to remember it going away. I more paid attention when they were coming back because by then I was already going to therapy. I was already being more open about whatever was going on with me, talking to Celia, talking that. So I noticed them coming back because nothing of who I was, like, I didn't really like. There was no music playing, there was no video games, there was no football. At the point I was really into football. There was nothing that was really like me anymore. It
Mm.
was just literally like the fucking body was working, but the personalities and the thing wasn't there. Like, I wasn't myself at all. So I related very strongly to that part of it. That is like, yes, 100% this is what happens. With me, obviously, was, as we'll see in the second movie, it's like a mixture of the anxiety and the depression, but you see how you're just not longer yourself. And that's because I'm, like I said in the other episode, I just love analyzing the shit out of everything and like paying attention to everything that happens. So then I was like, oh yeah, this is what's happening, and this is what gives me empathy towards other people. Like, I noticed it, and now for myself, I visualize that I made that connection to be like, oh, this is your fucking your island, like your personality island being suppressed or being lost because you're no longer wanting to be yourself because of what, or you're no longer yourself because of what you got going on. Especially the easy one that I've always thought, see, I'm like making connections of this shit. I've I'm fucking goofy as shit, and I always thought
Mm.
about like that. That never went away. Like, there was never a switch when it was like, oh, I'm fucking like proper and I'm doing this shit. Like, obviously, the more comfortable I get with like whoever I'm talking to, then I just becomes more of that. And I was like, I don't think a lot of that shit has gone away. And because you'll catch times, and I can like think about my brother too, like we're just fucking doing dumb shit and like dancing and singing and doing a lot of stuff that I just like, well, where is that shit? How come I don't see that a lot in other people? How come other people are so fucking afraid to just be goofy? And then you think, well, maybe they're going through some shit that doesn't really allow them. They got judged, they got bullied or something, or whatever it might be that doesn't allow you to be yourself. So yeah, that was, I connected a lot with that part because I saw it. I saw
Mm.
how that happened to me. And then, like I said, slowly but surely, I started noticing everything coming back, picking up the fucking video games, listening to music, being able to feel like myself little by little, till eventually was like fully came back to life, like re
Mm.
blossomed or whatever you want to
Mhm.
put it. That it was
Mhm.
just, yeah, it was just felt good to see that. So maybe something for people to pay attention to in that part.
Yeah, I think along those lines too, something that is important to pay attention and address is, yes, when we avoid all of those emotions, right? Like, again, chaos happens, mayhem happens. and then it can turn into this place of being numb, being not being able to feel. And difficult times are an essential part of growth.
Hmm.
I think if maybe Riley's parents were millennial, maybe it would have been a different story, right? Because maybe sadness and joy wouldn't be in this fight, or more like joy fighting sadness. Pero también, if you notice in the movie, is the change that brings about that awareness, right? Because afterwards, the islands that are where they come back, they're very different islands, even though
Mhm.
they're representing the same thing, right? Like how at the end it has then Minnesota, but it also has San Francisco. And
Mhm.
how like and it's really funny because when that this time around, I've watched that movie I don't know how many times today with a different lens. When that island came on again and San Francisco came about, that's one of the times where I started bawling. I
Hmm.
was like, oh my God. And I might cry right now. I'm like, in my life, I have gone through so much change, so much like struggles, right? Like I've lived in Mexico, I lived in San Francisco, I've had to like move back. I moved to Vegas, I've lived in Mexico City, and I'm like, "Oh my God, so much of who I am, so much of that island for me comes from so much struggle." And I love that. I love that
Mhm.
because then that allows me to appreciate those struggles. Like,
Yeah.
yes, in the moment it's hard, right? With Riley trying to make sense of like, fuck, like I'm no longer in Minnesota. For me, it was I'm no longer in Mexico. I'm no longer in the States. I can't go back to the States. But like after when it blossoms again, of being able to say my island is so strong, my island is so big because of all of these struggles.
Mhm.
And I think that's also a beautiful thing. Embracing that uncomfortable,
Yeah.
really embracing that discomfort.
Yeah. Just about handling it the right way, right? I think is
Mhm.
the key to it. Not just the
Mhm.
struggle, but how you handle the struggle.
Yep.
And actually handling the struggle is the key. Not just fucking pretending like it's not there. I would say that's the important part. Yeah. How you handle it and giving it its time, and same thing, processing whatever that struggle might be instead of just pretending and not giving it time and all that. It's very important, right? Because I think we all struggle, but unfortunately we don't deal with the struggle the proper way. So
Yeah.
dealing with it in the right way was that is definitely important. And I
Mhm.
think a little side note, I was having a conversation with my wife, and I think I said, "Oh, you're gonna see a lot." I mean, I'm pretty sure you agree. I haven't told you about it, but we're gonna have conversations of that. I want to have conversations on the podcast of struggles and how somebody that handles them properly and what the outcome is, because I want
Mhm.
to see how people relate to those. I want to have more stories, more shared experiences about tough times, how you handle those tough times the right way, and how was the outcome of that, you know? And what do you
Mhm.
feel? What do you see now that you're on the other side? What do you think about that? Or just sharing your experience, I think is going to be vital as well for the podcast.
I can I can think of my recent one that you know about that you've challenged me to talk about, and we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
Um of how, cuz I have both experiences, right, in terms of how I handled it when I was not handling it the proper way. And now where I actually like sat with my shit, like, oh, it is so different. It is so
Mm,
much different now.
we got good stuff. We got good
Mhm.
stuff coming up. Okay, just so
Yes.
you know, from both
Yes.
of us.
Yes, we
Yeah.
do. I'm excited about them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's gonna be good stuff. All
Mhm.
right. Um, yeah. I mean, we kind of touched on pretty much everything, right? So if you want to kind of get to more towards the end of that one, uh, I think Joy starts seeing with that thing with Bing Bong, right? I think this is when she starts to think like, oh shit, there's something there. Um, So then it
Yes,
starts
right.
changing from
She
there.
she recognizes that's exactly because like one of the things that I have on here is like I was doing my notes in both English and Spanish, but Joy se da cuenta que la tristeza ayuda a conectar, right? Like that was the first time that she looked and was like, whatever you did right there, I don't necessarily understand it, but whatever you did there, like that really, really helped. So good job for that. So starts to see the value in her and um like when they come back to headquarters and she allows Joy to touch those core memories, turn them into like that sadness.
Hmm.
Because as soon as when Riley comes in, when she like after she ran away, as soon as those core memories turn into sadness, that then allowed her to seek that comfort, that connection from people. And I think
Hmm.
a lot of us don't know. I was going to say forget, but it's mostly I think that we don't know that sadness allows for connection.
Hmm. Definitely. That's one thing I've also been on and paying attention to. I think instead of sometimes wanting other people that I know it's tough for them to open up, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna reel you in by me sharing some shit. Like I don't expect anything from you, but I'm gonna share my tough times. I'm gonna share my pain and my sadness with you. And I know by just doing that, eventually you're gonna share yours because you're gonna feel comfortable with it, because you can connect, because you can see yourself through that pain and that sadness and sharing those tough times.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Um, it makes a lot of sense. I never thought
Yes.
about a connection. I guess, yeah, not never thought about like it connects you, but I knew it would open you up because you see the same thing.
Yeah.
It'll soften you up to hear pain coming from somebody else or sadness coming from somebody else. It'll make it more likely for you to then share your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you want to build a better relationship with somebody, just share your
Share the
sadness. Share your
sadness.
sadness, share your pain,
Yes.
and that'll work.
Mm-hmm.
That'll
Yes.
work. Mm-hmm. Yep. Is that it for the first one, right? So she realizes the
Yeah.
sadness is important to feel everything, and kind of just realizes. And she says that at the beginning of the other movie, that she realizes that every emotion is important. So she becomes more accepting of everything, and she's like, oh, "Okay, we all have a role." And that's kind of like how the movie ends, and the other one opens up in the same way. It's like, "Oh, okay, here,
Yeah.
take the lead in sadness, and you handle it." And as soon as she has that, she lets sadness take control of the control
Console.
center there.
Mhm.
Yes, then she'll just everything feels better after that, and everything kind of like heals, and she feels just better by then giving sadness the time that it needed to be felt. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The only other thing is I don't necessarily understand it scientifically what it does, but Bing Bong sacrificing himself. Oh my god. Thank you for your service, sir. Um I don't know. I think one of the things that I like came up with that is losing Bing Bong um gave Riley a better chance at being happier, and maybe not happier, but um, more fulfilled. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe like we lose, there will be things in our life that we won't remember forever. Um, but they all have a purpose for the greater good, right? So that's the only thing I wanted to give Bing Bong the
Yeah.
shout out that he deserves. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just the thing of like every aspect. I think every step of our lives, every decision, it affects us in one way or another. And those, whether we remember those things or not, I think they still carry weight and affect us to this day. Whether we know what they are or not, it's still very important.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean,
Yes.
the second one, I don't know what you thought about your opinions. We haven't talked about it. I thought I caught the same thing was happening. I just saw that it was like, okay, we're dealing now with anxiety and it's not sadness anymore, but it's pretty much the same story, right? It's pretty much the same story. How this time around, I think Joy wants to be inclusive and thus give the control to anxiety because she understands that everything's important. But then anxiety doesn't know that. Anxiety takes over, and anxiety is just like, no, fuck you guys, everybody out. It's just me and all the this complex emotions, you know. Um, so yeah, I mean, now now she's like entering her teenage years. Everything's supposed to be under control, and then she hits puberty and all goes to shit, right? Because she gets those complex emotions, and now you have embarrassment, envy, boredom, wee wee, and what the heck is the other one? Oh, that's it, right? Anxiety, boredom, and envy or
Envy,
embarrassment. Yeah, those are the new
embarrassment.
four. Yeah, so that is a more complicated, more of more complex, as they say, you know. And then at the beginning, I did notice that Joy once again. I skipped a little bit in that introduction to it. Is still kind of like struggling, and oh, she's making the mistake of sending the negative emotions to the back of the mind. That's like her mistake. So she learned to accept all the emotions, but the memory, she's like, nah, get the fuck out of here, go in the back. We don't need to address this. We don't need to talk about this. She made like this janky fucking tube to send all the stuff to the back that barely even works. And that ends up that also ends up being the cause of the problem, right? Again, of not dealing with it. It's like once again, it's very similar where it's not the things are not getting addressed that are happening that need to be. So those are that's where the problem begins. That all of that is kind of gone, taken out in there. Um, how does how do the I was actually brought it down as a question, like how does puberty affect us emotionally? Is it just because chemicals, all that shit is going around, and then it just makes you more volatile, right? Is that the thing? Like
Yeah,
everything's
there's
kind of the place.
yeah, there is a lot of I think I don't you see that like the little workers in the mind? Like I actually asked myself, I'm like, I wonder if they're like their hormones, neurotransmitters, what are those like little workers that are there? Um but you know how like they come in, they're like, "Oh, new console," right? And they like do some of the work and they like fucking leave. So I the way I took it was more of like those the hormonal changes,
Hmm.
right? It's just like so many changes because like throughout the movie there's a lot of construction going on throughout it, right? So I think it is just the all of the release of hormones that really affect um at the
Yeah.
puberty stage, because if we think about it, a lot of what goes on in our head is controlled, or our bodies in general is controlled by hormones,
Hmm.
and the neurotransmitters, the chemicals, right, of serotonin, oxytocin, cortisol. um, so yeah, it is a
Hmm.
lot of like the spikes of testosterone, estrogeno, right? So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Everything's all over the place.
mhm.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, it's pretty much the same story. What I caught about the second time around watching it, that this time she's changing herself to fit in. So she's suppressing her emotions to just fit in because of the societal pressures, you know, of like want to fit in, wants to make the team, wants to be cool, wants to do all that. So then she starts like slowly suppressing her emotions. So yeah, that's what's happening. And then but once again, I'm paying attention to the shit because I watched it the first time and I didn't catch as many things as the second time that I watched it. But I just had this conversation with one of my nieces. I was like, "Oh, why didn't you do this?" And then she's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Well, look, you see how Aaliyah doesn't give a fuck about anything and she just does whatever she wants." I was like, she hasn't gotten to the point of maybe getting made fun of, getting bullied for something, so she just doesn't care. And I saw you used to be just like Aaliyah, and now you're like more shy, you're more to yourself and more that. So I was like, maybe pay attention to that's happening, and you just once again, it's hard to be yourself, but make the effort to be yourself. This happened before we watching the movie again, because I'm just like paying attention to that, you know. So I was like, if those are the reasons why, like, start working on that stuff and start paying attention to yourself and who you want to be and how much you're changing yourself because you're afraid of what other people might think, you know?
Hmm.
Yep.
I like that. I really, really like that. Um, as I was watching it with the suppressed emotions, you know, when they go into like the vault with the darkest secret,
Yeah.
I thought of the the conversation we had with about this human that like has an emotion and then has to like stop and like decide if that emotion is allowed to come out or not.
Hmm.
That is literally what it made me think about of like, oh my God, how many of us are out here in the world doing that, right? Like just like really repressing a lot of emotion, letting our anxiety or whatever other emotion is governing the brain, and everything else we put into a jar and we just send it to
Yeah.
suppressed land. So it made me think about that conversation that we had, and I'm like, oh my God, because even if my dad was also watching the movie and he's that person, because I was crying for it in the first one with the bing bong, and then he was just like, that's just life, it's fine, that's just the way it is, right? So like you could tell like his emotion, like, I mean, I don't know if he got touched by anything, but like those motherfuckers were like stashed away because it's like
Yeah.
it's life, it's fine, it happens all the time, and I'm just like, you heartless motherfucker. Um, but how many of us are like that constantly, just repressing emotions, and how dangerous that is for us.
Hmm. Yeah. That's, I think, what Gabor Mate talks about. That's one of the most dangerous things you can do for your well-being overall, physical and every kind of health, is suppressing your emotions. It's the one of the worst things you can do, according to him. You know,
Mhm.
because then you can talk about how that all that and all that suppressed stuff and how it literally affects your body within the physiological stuff that then causes you to get diseases. And
Yes.
it's all connected.
Yes.
And if you can find
Absolutely.
the fucking cure to your diabetes because the pills are not working and this is not working, that's not working, well, look at the fucking mind. Maybe it's time to pay attention up there. And that's the only thing that's left to probably take care of that then might help you to heal.
Mm,
Not just that, just on every disease, because like I said, it's all connected.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, one of one of my professors in undergrad used to tell me, "Lo que no arregles aquí, aquí va a salir." And with anything, people, it's so funny how they show up, but people don't see the correlation. Like I have a couple clients that don't like to cry, pero se
Hmm.
enferman mucho de la garganta.
Mm,
Where, okay, the tears are not coming out, but your body's like, oh, you're not gonna let this liquid out? I will fucking find a way. So se like le da mucha gripa, right? So los mocos
mm,
están ahí instead of las lágrimas, right? Or somebody that's like doesn't advocate for themselves, and two of like, oh, I can't talk, like se me va la voz all the time, right? Or
mhm.
maybe we don't deal with our rage and just like tengo colitis nerviosa, right? We don't want to let go of somebody or something, and then maybe like we have there's colon cancer, right? And then gente que está estresada and they don't deal with it, they literally get rashes, they start losing their hair, all kinds of things that happen when we don't address those emotions.
Yeah. It's all connected. It's all connected. Just to
Hmm.
see the people that are not watching and just listening, she said, "Well, you don't deal with it in the brain, the or in your mind, the body will show because you just made the gestures and you didn't say it. So whatever you don't address in your mind, the body will show it.
I didn't say
Whatever
that.
you don't fix, you just made the gesture. You said this and this.
Oh,
Yeah. So
did
that's
I
what I'm
say it in
talking about.
Spanish? Was my
No,
brain
you
in?
just said whatever you don't deal with here, it will show here. That's how you said it. So I'm just
Oh,
saying
that's
you
right.
said,
I forget that not
mm,
everybody sees us on video.
yeah,
I apologize. Yeah.
yeah, just let
Whatever
everyone know that.
yes, whatever you don't figure out or deal with in your head, your body will
Yeah,
manifest.
definitely, definitely.
Thank you.
Just out of a thing as a question for you is like, how does anxiety, because that's what's introduced, right? So how does anxiety help us? What's the purpose? What's the healthy thing that anxiety does for us?
Well, anxiety, like you know how she does all of like the what is the worst possible case scenario
Hmm.
that will happen if this or that, right? So, one of the things that she mentioned, she's like, I help by like I think of like the future, right? So, anxiety takes past experiences
Hmm.
and prepares us. What is our because like one of the things that she does in the movie, right? Of like, oh, if we don't make the fire somebody, then that means we're gonna have more friends and we're gonna be alone. We're gonna like die alone, and they like literally show a skeleton. That's literally what anxiety is trying to prevent you from dying. So it is there to ensure your survival. So it uses past experiences to look into the future to see what is the best way that you're going to survive.
Hmm. So that makes sense. That makes sense because I think the difference that they made is like fear helps you from what you see, and anxiety helps you what you can see.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just vital. Obviously, like when I think of it in just in a straight up way. Once again, I just keep thinking about the girls all the time. So, Aaliyah ran into the street one time with us. Like she was walking along us, and she just ran, and there was a car coming, so that scared the shit out of us. And I think more the fear of us screaming is what scared her more than anything else. Yeah.
Hmm.
And now, like afterwards, like, look, it's dangerous. You have to look. Now, every time for a couple of days afterwards, every time we get out the car, it's like, look, you have to look both ways, right? Is there no car? Nothing there. So I'm pretty sure the memory of that happening is going to be there and is going to somehow still remind her, oh shit, I can get hit. So even though it's not happening, the anxiety in a way is reminding you of what happened to try to protect you from what might happen.
Hmm.
That causes you to now look both ways before it even happens, right? Like I
Hmm.
think that's a way that it'll just be directly that you guys can kind of imagine and see how it actually works from one specific example.
Yeah. One of the things that like happened to me, I've been in like in the last 4 years, I've been in like 7 car accidents. So yeah.
Te voy a pasar el cilantro, soy quien limpia.
Sí, um, I know. I don't know what the fuck that was, but like within the last 4 years, I think I've had like 7 car accidents, some type of car accident, and 2 of them my car was totaled. So before all the accidents, I would like dash through fucking cars, and pass people up, go like 80, 85 on the freeway and just like living my best motherfucking life. After those accidents, I'm driving, right? So then now I'm like very aware of like, okay, how much distance do I have in between the car? I'm gonna merge. So then I put like my blinker on, and then I like look and I'm like, okay, who could possibly maybe move this way so I can do that, right? So I am constantly now looking for that. There will be times, but it doesn't come with anxiety. Like I don't feel anxious. Now, there are times where I'm driving and a car switches lanes where like I feel too close and my body will go like, ugh, like I will tense up. Um and I do feel like that roller coaster feeling, right? So
Mhm.
then sensation. So then my body gets anxious of like, oh my God. So but what I do is I don't repress it and I just don't tell it, be like, you're fine, like you're good, right? But more of like, "Ugh, okay, all right. There's this is something. So here's a grounding exercise for all of y'all. And so I put my hand on my chest and I start doing like little circles and just say, thank you so much, body. Thank you for keeping me safe. And right here, right now, I am safe. There is no danger. We are looking out. We are being aware. So I allow myself to relax. I allow myself to calm down.
Hmm.
And then I release that. I keep driving. That's
Yeah.
one way that I do it. The other way, because again, we talked about how emotions show up in our body. So where I feel that with the car, specifically with the driving, I feel it on my upper body and my arms, because I like tense, right? Like I grab the wheel. So then what I do, I jerk my body. Like right after, like I do that, then I'm like, okay, there's energy stashed, like stuck in my body. I need to get rid of it. So I literally just like jerk my body when I'm driving. So then that allows for that energy to go
Hmm.
away.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a similar thing to me happened one time. I almost fucking literally died. I want to say I almost got hit by a semi truck.
Whew.
Uh, yeah, the brakes on the car, no, not the brakes. The bumper was like cracked or something, and I was going in those parts of fucking five where you can't even tell how fast you're going because there's no cars in front of you. I was going like 100, and
A
there was
la
a bump.
madre.
There was like a bump, and then the bumper went into the tire. The back of it went into the tire. So then I started losing control and braking, and then I almost spun out. Like my mom was in the fucking backseat with no seatbelt, like laying down and shit. So I was like, "Fuck!" So I was spinning out, and then I saved it last second, and then I have the vivid memory of the fucking semi just passing next to me, like that, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And after that, I was driving. There was like 2 hours to go to get to where I was going to over here in LA. I remember going like 55 the rest of the way, and ever since that time, I was like, "Yeah, I don't fuck around." Uh, yeah, but one thing that I do now with the thing that I paid attention to and I noticed is like I get a little bit nervous, and for me it was like, oh yeah, it's supposed to happen.
Hmm.
This alertness keeps me safe.
Hmm.
So then it's like, okay, yeah, that's right. This is why I feel a little bit like anxious or like I'm paying extra attention to shit. I was like, oh, it's protecting me. That's what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
Like I want to be alert when I'm driving. I don't want to fucking completely not pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So there is a function to anxiety, y'all. Like it is okay for anxiety to show up. It is not okay for it to take over like it does in the movie, because
Hmm.
it you see what happens with her when she's like at the um
Hmm.
like the day of the trial, right? Um tell us about that.
Before we get there, I have another note that I made here.
Okay. Yeah.
So just she's constantly changing herself to fit in. About the concert, right? I mean, about the band that she likes, that she's saying she doesn't like, and she's like questioning even the way she walks and all this shit to try to look cool or fit in. So once again, suppressing those emotions, and then the rest of the movie is about those emotions trying to make their way back, try to make it back to the control room where they can be felt and they can be dealt with and all of that. At the beginning of the movie, Joy tells Sanders like, "Here, go read some shit. Like, go do some books or go look at the manual or something like that." I'm pretty sure it was in the second one, and that triggered the thought to be just like we thought that there's connection in sadness. There is knowledge in sadness and in pain.
Hmm.
The key to all your fucking shit that you don't want to deal with, the key to feeling better, the key to dealing with it, understanding yourself, understanding how you see the world and all that lies within the pain and sadness. Everything is there. You must look at that shit head on, whether one seed at a time or the whole fucking tree, right? Like a little bit at a time. You just you just have to face that eventually for you to feel better, right? You have to look at that. That is where the key to everything is. Looking at yourself, feeling it, understanding, feeling bad of the shit that you did and understanding what that is. And it's all there. It's all in the shit that we try to avoid, right? Like, do you see that? Like in both movies, you understand what's happening and what those emotions are doing. But I thought it was cool that they're like, here, sadness, go look at some shit, like study this. And then she's like, oh yeah, I read about this here, I read about that there, because the knowledge that it is, that's all everything is there. The answers to all the shit are there in your pain and your sadness, and learning how to see why it happens, or coping with it, or learning about yourself, lies there. And it's hard to do, right? One of my mentors made the analogy as like opening a door that you don't know what's behind the door.
That's scary.
And yeah, and it's scary and it's hard to look at it and all that, but that's where it is, you know. For me, at least, it was taught again, read it somewhere. It's like, oh, uh, do exactly what you don't want to do. That's where it is. Whatever you feel any hesitation, whatever you feel any fear, whatever you feel any anxiety towards things that are happening, that's exactly where you want to focus on, and that's in the direction you want to go, to heal you. Obviously, I'm learning, like I've been saying this whole fucking episode. It's like, you gotta be kind, you gotta be gentle, you gotta love yourself. Do it a little bit at a time, you know. Deal with it as much as you can take, and find the right people to be there for you. Like, go
Mhm.
to therapy, like a friend that you know you can count on, books, whatever it might be. But you have to address that pain. You have to address that sadness. So much too. I love that pain, and I learned this thing about pain through anime that I watch. I don't watch a lot of anime, but I my nephew got me into one of them, and I love the character so much that I'm gonna get a tattoo of him, of pain, and how important it is, and how he just carries himself. If you know anime, you know that I'm talking about Naruto. But yeah, that character is so amazing, and the importance of pain. And even though he's misguided and wants to create pain on everybody so they learn to appreciate themselves, he just says pain changes. Like you were talking about, right? The struggle changes you. The struggle changes you. And his from his perspective, from what I understood or how I took it, is everybody's just fucking around, getting mad, dealing with fighting each other for shit that makes no sense. So then in his mind, he's like, I'm gonna bring pain to the whole fucking world. I'm gonna make the whole world suffer. So there's a before and after, so that you realize that there's no point over fighting over bullshit. That we're all the same. That this tribal mentality and this idea of being so different is not really there. It's just made up, and we all should be taking care of one another, and helping each other out. So
Mm.
yeah, that was the thing that I thought when sadness is there, like joy is like, go study some shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, the other shit is just the thing that I got finally is the the balance, right? Once again, you get to the same thing. So, oh yeah, but before that, you have the well, have the anxiety notes afterwards. But yeah, so then eventually she doesn't deal with all those anxieties, and then she has that panic attack, right? Like the panic attack starts
Mhm.
when she's having the game, as you said. And yeah, if you haven't experienced a panic attack, that's exactly what the fuck it looks like. And I thought about this when I was taking the notes, and I was like, how graphic can I be about this shit so that people understand? Because I've had experience with some people that is like, it's just fucking anxiety or it's a panic attack. Like, how bad could it be? And
Mm.
I mean, it literally your body literally doesn't tell the difference from a real threat or one that you're made up in your head, and actually thinks that you're gonna die in that moment.
Mhm.
Like, it actually does. So if you ever been in that, like, I could imagine the fear that you felt when you got in those car accidents, right? Like, and the shock that you had, and the adrenaline is up, and your heart is pumping, you're like, what the fuck just happened, and all this, and you just don't know how to react out of that, and then you slowly to get out of it. Well, people can put themselves in that fucking mode just by the power of their mind and by the power of the anxiety taking over. So you literally think you're going to die. So the thing with me, I mean, it's kind of hard, and I'm thankful that it's been so long, right? But um it was just, I can tell you the physical things, right? For me, I can tell right away, my body has like a heat thing. So my body get like a heat rush, and then I was like paying attention to it, and eventually I became so hyper aware of my body that that heat thing would cause a panic attack. So a high level of anxiety would give me this heat feeling where my body would get hot, and then I'm like, oh shit, here we go again, and then it just started going from there. But just to give you, like, I think the whole process of it is like, my body gets hot, And then I was like, okay, that's happening. Then my stomach will start hurting, right? And then I was like, fuck, there's something in the thing, so something's happening. Then by then I catch my number one tail that I think only Celia knows is like I start playing with my beard like this. So I'm pulling on my beard like this. If you see me just doing that over and over, and it's not just a couple of times, it's like there's something bothering me by then already there. And then it just starts elevating from there. Then it's just like in the fucking in the movie, like how anxiety is going in circles. That's what the fuck it feels like. Like you become hyper aware of everything. Your heart starts pumping like 1,000 miles a fucking hour. You're looking away and you're looking there. You want to run. Like for me, it was like I just want to move. I want to get out of here. Something's wrong, and you're just fucking completely don't know what to do. And like I said, the adrenaline, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna fucking die. There's something wrong. What if this happens? What if that happens?" And then you're just already, literally, feels exactly like how they depicted in the movie, but it did a good idea visually, but obviously you can't tell until you feel it. And the only way that I can explain it to you is think of the time that you were in danger when you thought you were gonna die, and then your brain can do that afterwards on its own. Like that same feeling that you get, the same thing when you were in danger, when something scary happened to you, when like you got a fucking phone call that gives you some crazy news, and your fucking heart just starts pumping. Like that's exactly how it feels. And some people have that like very often, you know. I think I was very close, or I had on most of the days when I was barely going through this, I probably had maybe 2 or 3 a day where they were full blown panic
Wow.
attacks. And then it was just high levels of anxiety and all that, you know. But it can be really crippling. It can be really overwhelming, you know. And it feels so scary that people develop a fear of that on its own, which is the case for me, you know, which even makes it even fucking worse because you're now afraid of actually just feeling that way, and anything like that will trigger it, right? Like a place, the physical sensations, the if it was just maybe just fucking hot, there was like some kind of hot air fucking from the kitchen or something that would remind me of like, oh shit, that's happening. My silly my panic attack. See, I'm so many fucking stories because I like how I pay attention to everything. My panic attack happened at In and Out in San Francisco, and I went to San Francisco 2 weeks ago. And as I'm walking already on Pier 39, I remember like I told Celia, "Do you realize where the fuck are we?" And she's like, "No, where?" And I was like, "Pay attention, where are we?" And she's like, "Oh shit, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just remembering where all this shit started, where all these things
Mm.
happened, where it was just like crippling from then." And yeah, I was fine, but it was just like a little bit of like, "Oh shit, I'm actually like here. I didn't even realize this is where I was going," you know. So anything can kickstart it, your own thoughts, right? Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think when it's not the actual fear of the panic attack, what happens to people is, well, from my understanding, because I had high levels of anxiety, but never got to a panic attack where it was something that I was scared of,
Mm.
like other than the fear itself. There was nothing else. But if you're saying, oh, fucking I have like chest fucking like a muscle spasm before, and I'd be like, oh shit, I'm gonna have a heart attack. And then if you react with it super scared and be like, oh my god, it's gonna be like this, and then because of what you're telling yourself, then your body reacts, right? Because your body doesn't know your body doesn't know the difference between scenarios that are real, scenarios that you tell in your head, right?
Yeah, the paper tigers and the
Yeah,
tigers that we've
it
talked
just sees
about.
them. Yeah, it just sees them as the same thing. So then
Mhm.
it just goes from there, and then you start worrying. Oh my god, this and that. Then your heart rate goes up, and then you start panicking, and you're like, oh my god, it's happening, and this and that. And then the next thing you know, you're freaking the fuck out, and you're having all those same sensations as that. So yeah, I think they did like when I'm watching, I was like, yeah, you guys did a really good job. But then
Mm.
again, it's just a movie, right? And it's like until you experience that shit, you don't know how 100 times worse it feels than what you saw in the movie, right? Like that is the shit. So then, yeah, she's in the game. She's having this, and then she gets she she makes that foul where I think she hits her friend, and then she gets the 2 minutes of a penalty thing. And then it just so happens, but what actually happens in her brain is that she gives time to think about all this shit that she's been doing, right?
Mm.
Like by then, the joy and the sadness and all the emotions come back. So then she starts processing it, start processing what's happening and what has she been doing. Give some time, slows down a little bit after the panic attack, and she's like, oh shit, okay. And then she goes back to like feeling like herself a little bit after she processed those things. And I just thought, it's like, oh, I literally have on the notes, and even when I saw it, it's like, oh, the fucking the penalty or the break that she had to take is literally the break that we have to take ourselves, and addressing those emotions.
Yeah.
It was literally like mindfulness, meditation, therapy, whatever it is. That's what that 2 minute break, I think I interpreted.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You-
think like and with that, right, like because one of the things that they talk about on there is like this sense of self, right?
Mhm.
Like Joy had made sure that she's like, I'm a good person, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. So it didn't give space to like all of the other memories that like made her. And um when Joy and all like of the emotions make it back to headquarters, right? And when she's able to like stop the panic attack or whatever, um anxiety says we don't get to choose who Riley is. Like we as an emotions, we
Mhm.
don't get to choose who she is, right? Because that's what Joy was doing, sending all the memories that didn't work for her.
Mhm.
And so, and after the avalanche, where all of the memories come about and like all of the strings um, make this like sense of self, it is such a beautiful moment to experience of I am all of these things. I'm
Mhm.
not just I'm a good person, because in that people that have anxiety many times tend to be people pleasers, or have a tendency to people please. I don't want to label them with that, but have a tendency to people please because I have to be a good person.
Mhm.
Right. So then that culmination of Joy being like, fuck, you're right. Right. And them taking the I'm a good person one and just embracing all of the memories, all of the emotions, and how they embrace right at the end. I think it was like such a beautiful moment. That's also when I started like bawling. I'm like, thank you so much, emotions. You make me who I am. Um,
Yeah.
and it's nice too. Like even though it's a I don't know if you've seen the memes where like kids watching Inside Out, they're just like and like adults watching Inside Out, it's just like fucking waterworks.
Yeah.
And in that moment when all of the emotions embrace it and like all of the memories, my mom, I feel so seen, I feel so validated again, like gracias mamá, te amo. um Me voltea a ver and she's like, esa eres tú,
Hmm.
that's you. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, tú tienes todas esas emociones, tú tienes todas esas memorias. And I'm like, is that why I feel so deeply, mom? Like, por eso siento con tanta intensidad. And she's like, sí, mija. And I just
Mm.
like went to her fucking lap and just like crawled in there, kind of like a cat, a dog, just like, hey, I need some love. And I was like, do you love your deeply feeling daughter? And she like starts going like this to my head and she's like, sí, mi amor, yo te amo. And I just like bawled even more. I'm just like, thank you, mom. It was a beautiful moment. Gracias,
That's awesome.
mama.
That is awesome. You
Yeah.
gotta let the emotion that I'm having as you're saying that, what comes to my mind.
Mm.
Must be nice.
Oh, papa.
Must be nice. Yeah. We'll get to that part when we get there. But
We
there's
get
always those
there.
things like I want to feel happy for you, and I feel happy for you for an instant, and then it just comes to like, oh, must be nice, right? I touch
Those
on that.
complex emotions are allowed.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
allowed to have both.
Yeah, and thank you for I mean, I don't want to like feel like I'm rushing or getting out of that emotion. I just think it's a conversation we're gonna have later on.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you for bringing that sense of self stuff. I completely passed on that. But yeah, I think it's just a reminder, like you said at the end of the day, that we're so complex. We are everything. Like I think some people attach to like in the movie, like I am this, like I
Mhm.
am this specific thing. And it's like, well, no, we're not. Like, first of all, we're fucking different people with everyone that we see. We have a different relationship, but we are shy when we want to be. We're outgoing when we want to be. We're fucking quiet. We're loud. We're angry. We're calm. And everybody, like they say, everybody has a different idea of who you are as a person because you're different with every single person. But it just becomes we're so complex, you know. What's I think also a problem is when you identify like in there you identify a specific thing and then you try to live up to that shit. But that's not who I am. Like that's not who I am, but like fucking life is telling you like yes, you're like this and you're just like in denial, right? So the suffering I think of um trying to be something that you know you're not at the same time, like trying to pretend that
Yeah.
you're something that you're not and not doing that and not being okay with just being like I'm complex. I'm allowed to be both things. I can
Hmm.
be tough and I can cry. I can be everything, you know. That's
Yes.
very very beautiful to have all those feelings and yeah, just like in the first one, it all comes together, right? It all comes together and everything is important, everything is vital, every emotion is important for us to feel, for us to have. It's you have to learn to give it its time, you know. Like if you're watching both of the movies, that's the main thing you take. Any shit that you feel, it's okay to feel,
Hmm.
and it's vital for you to feel that and you just look at the negative things that happen when you don't feel with those when you don't deal with those feelings like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. So 10 out of 10.
Hmm.
It's just yeah. Well, you gotta go watch those if you haven't seen it.
Yes.
You have to
Watch both.
watch both of them. They're really good. There's like you said, they're made for kids, but fucking adults are there. Yeah, the quote I actually have the quote here written down that everybody quotes on the memes is like maybe this is what happens when you grow up. You feel less joy, and I'm just like that's fucking sad. Like you know, that's I kind of thought about it differently now the second time that I did it because my first one was like, well, is it really? Like, am I feeling less joy now that I'm older because of just because how life is? But I kind of like refuse to accept that. Like, I refuse to accept in my first thing when they said it. Like, I didn't take it as like I the first time I went at the movie theater, I didn't take that in. It's like, oh yeah, it does fucking do that. And my show was like, no, like like it doesn't have to be, and it's not. And once again, when you don't deal with those fucking emotions properly, don't deal with those things, you don't give them the time. That is what could end up happening. But you can still, like I said, I take pride in the goofy fucking person that I still am, and I still watch or enjoy video games or watch shit that like has no like no weight to it. It's just like shit that is fun to me that I don't have to be like that and allowing myself to be goofy and all that is the prime example and just have fun, you know. And I think people can tell. I don't think we talked about it on the podcast, but some people can tell we're just more open to just being goofy and being ourselves, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there is here's my take on it
Mm-hmm.
of like the less joy part. I think in terms of quantity, maybe. I think in terms of quality, it changes, it shifts if you allow yourself to feel all of the emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if we go back to Inside Out 1, at the beginning was so much joy, but it wasn't helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So when you give space to all of the other emotions, yeah, you're right. There might be less joy there, right? But when you do have those moments of joy, um, you you allow them to come in just like as the other ones. And to me, one of the things, and um, one of our guests mentions, right, is I'm not looking for happiness, I'm looking for peace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I might have less joy because I'm allowing all of the other emotions, but that gives me a lot more of a fulfilled life, which is what I'm striving for.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just thinking of my journey, like that definitely makes sense, right? Once you dealt with that and I got fucking bombarded with all the avalanche of fucking emotions, and the same thing that happened to me, because that's exactly what happened. Yeah, you do come out on the other side and it feels more peaceful, but that peace also allows you to feel everything, and to me it's like it also allows me to feel happiness more. And it's a trip too that, like, at some point I believed that like happiness meant that it was done, that I was gonna die, that there was something bad coming. I
Mhm.
believed that for a long time for some reason. I mean, I know it somehow comes from Hollywood, right? You know how good shit is happening in the movie, and then you know like something's gonna fucking happen when good things are
Mhm.
happening. And it was just like, oh, it's not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be a struggle. It's like now it's like I've challenged those thoughts and I've changed them to be like, no, the fuck it is. Now, at first when I was changing, it was like, yeah, this feels scary. Like, is this fucking normal? Am I supposed to feel like this, like happy and all this time? And it was like that. And I was like, yeah, no, you're supposed to. Like, this is what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to feel that peace and you're supposed to feel happy and everything else, right? Not just those two, but once you deal with it and in the proper way, you come out with peace that allows you to then welcome everything. And I think just joy peaks as fucking comes in more often than before, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. Anything else you got from the movie?
That's it.
Yeah, me neither. We're good. All right, so like we said, 10 out of 10. Go check it out, go look at it.
Yes. Go
And now we're
watch
gonna
it.
have a now we're gonna segue into a little short conversation on current events. um the current event that I thought today, which just happened recently over the last few days, is the whole thing with the streamer like Sketch. I think he's like fucking hilarious, right? I've just like everybody else got was amazed at how funny he was and how witty he is. And it's just the ability to, and he's just making me laugh even at the shit that he said, that like at the way that he just dealt with the controversy, right? So the thing that happened is somebody found out that he had an OnlyFans account with like homosexual content, right? And I didn't see anything because I don't fucking have X, and I just know that that's like I don't want to. It's completely uncensored, and I don't want to like put myself to watch any shit like that. Like some family members and friends watch that shit, and I'm just like, that's not for me. I don't want to see any of that stuff because, like I said, it's completely uncensored. So yeah, then there was this allegation. I happened to like how I saw it is like there was a video at a couple nights ago that I was like, oh, there's this pictures of Sketch. I wonder if it's him. But to me, my mind was like, first of all, is this shit real? Like AI is fucking crazy now. Doesn't even make any sense. I need to first make sure that this is real because anybody could just made it up and they could have just used some pictures and shit like that. And then the next day, at some point, I see that he's addressing it, and he says like, "Oh, he admits that it was him."
Mm.
So then I was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" Like, okay. And then I get interested in finding the actual video, not just the little pieces, and I watch the whole thing. And then he's like, it's just fucking hilarious. So first of all, as I'm talking about it now, I relate myself to him and the ability to just fucking say it, right? Like, first of all, to just be like that. And so people are amazed at how he's like, PR departments would be like, let it die down a little bit, do this. And this motherfucker literally just goes on Twitch, goes live, and just starts talking about it the day after. He's like, yeah, that's me. And then he's making his jokes. He's like, yeah, like he will. I'll get. I want to get to that part, but he's like, yeah, it was me. I was addicted to some shit like in the past, but I've changed now. I want to thank. He's like, I want to thank one of the other streamers. Is like he saved my life. Because I don't know if Sketch himself has some kind of I don't know if something's wrong with him. I don't know the proper terms, right? Like he's twitchy, he just seems very outspoken. I don't know if he has something wrong with him, right? I don't know. Or if it's just the way he is like that. But he's like, yeah, I want to thank him. I want to thank my parents. He was like, Plan A was really, but just not to be here if this ever got leaked. But I want to thank you guys. I want to thank this guy that is he happened to be at his house when this leaked. So he was at that friend's house or that other streamer's house when this leaked, and he left the house. And then that streamer was like, "Hey, you're okay?" And he like showed the text. He's like, You don't have to leave, you can come back. And then he's like, oh, are you sure? I don't want to I don't want to bring you guys into this this controversy or this drama and shit. He's like, nah, bro, come back and all that. So then he thanks him, how he literally, he doesn't say it, but he's like, I would have killed myself if I would have been alone,
Oof.
because I was so afraid of this coming out. He said I would have ended. I don't know how he says it. Like plan A was to call it quits or something like that. Is how he says it, right? Um, and then the just to prove how fucking hilarious he is and how much of a fan I am of his even more through this. He's like, I did not have sexual relationships with that man. Well, I did. Actually, I did. And he gets up and like walks around and then just comes back. And it's just the way he communicates and how blunt he is. So he's super witty. He's like, he says the funniest shit and he's so smart, but he just thinks about it like ridiculously quick. So it was just hilarious. He was like, I did not have a sexual relationship with that man. And then he does something with his hands, right? Like, and then he's like, well, actually, I did. And then he just gets up and walks away the thing, something like that. Uh, but the whole point where I thought it was interesting for me to bring it up in the current events is then I saw the support that he had, and I was like, wow, like this is fucking cool. Like
Mhm.
this is good. Obviously, there was the idiots before he addressed it that were just talking shit, but then all the streamers that came out in his support, all of them that said like, bro, it don't fucking matter what you do in your private life. Like that's completely up to you and all that. And just the support of like, we love you, Sketch. Like this don't change anything. The people that subscribe to his thing, and just kind of the support that he got is like, wow, it feels, even though it could be 50-50, it feels like we've entered a different stage of acceptance. Like that's what it felt like to me. It's cool that there is no such like hate, because I think a few years ago, probably if this happened a few years ago, it wouldn't have been done, you know. He would have gotten a lot of shit for it. And I just want to say like fuck the NFL, because they took away his whatever, the association with him. And the NFL was like super fucking conservative and all that shit. That's the only negative thing that I heard from other people. But yeah, it was just felt really good. Felt really nice to see the acceptance happen from the streamers. I was like, I was react or watching, reading the comments on the videos, and a lot of them like super supportive. Like, we love you, Sketch. Like, this don't change anything. You're still my favorite content creator and all that shit. So it was cool to see that. You know, it's interesting what he's gonna come back with, but it's good to see that just this shift has been made, I think. And
Mhm.
this was like, I think there might even be like a before and after him. You get me? Like it might
Mm.
be like this can feel like he was the one that like did this shit that made it okay to be accepted, or he somehow, because he's his personality and being so cared and being such a good guy, that I made it okay for other people to see like, oh, it don't fucking matter, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm not a streamer. I don't know who this sketch was before you brought it up to me.
Mhm.
And one of the things is that part of the support, the change that has been happening. And if we tie it back to our episode today, this part of just allowing people to be, right? I don't know how old he is.
It's early 20s, I would be my guess. Like early
So
20s.
um, people our age have kids that are within that age range, maybe a little bit younger, but just the difference that it makes as millennial parents come into play, and they're raising those Gen Zers, and then I don't even know what generations are after, but just how they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. And I fucking love that. I am here for it, because
Mhm.
there is a lot more acceptance from people and with the LGBTQI plus community, legitimate qua, as some people say it, the legitimate qua community, and I fucking love that. An older person, Instagram person that I follow, she is a therapist, a psychotherapist, and
Mhm.
she also is a sex worker, and she's out on her social medias. Like, she has both her professional social media as a therapist, where she talks about mental health, capitalism, um, colonialism, all of that. And she also has her OnlyFans where she creates content, adult content with women, with men. And and I'm like, fuck, like I fucking love that for you, girl. Like, yes, 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 we need more of that. So now that a younger person, a male, right, and engaging in sex with other males, and people being like, yeah, we don't give a fuck. We see you as a person, not just as you having sex with other men. I'm here for it. We want more of that because we are complex humans, like you mentioned earlier. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that he's
Right.
getting that type of response um and support. And yeah, I mean, fuck the NFL because yeah, we know how
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, my stance on all this stuff is like, I want my daughters to be exposed to, like, you can be whatever the fuck you want to be, and it doesn't matter to me, and you can choose to be and be attracted to whatever you want to be attracted to, whoever you want to be attracted to. So I want them, my stance is like, I want them to get exposed so that they don't feel like they're the only ones, so that they don't feel alone.
Hmm.
Is I don't, unfortunately, this shit of like, oh, you're changing me, or you're fucking guiding them into be whatever, gay, bisexual, whatever, transgender, whatever, that shit, I don't buy that shit. It's like, I just want them to know that it's a possibility, and that they, so they don't feel alone.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I want them to know. So how I approach it is like, oh, it's okay. Boys can wear dresses. Boy can wear whatever they want because it's just clothes. So you can be attracted and you can be whatever else because it's just that, and that's what that means. So it's okay to be, whatever it is you be. Just that's my only thing, right? I just don't want them to feel alone, and I want
Yeah.
them to feel accepted, and to know that there's a community that will support them and be there for them. That's it. That's the whole
Yes.
plan. Instead of,
Yes.
once again, them hiding them fucking themselves because I'm a stupid ass dad that doesn't believe in this or that. Now we already fucking to tie it full circle, right? Like that's what the fuck happens in this shit. Um, you just have all these suppressed emotions that are not good for you in any kind of way. And obviously, like he said, if he wouldn't have his friends or other people that accepted him and all that, he probably would have killed himself.
Hmm.
So it's important to feel included and to know that there's somebody out there that can understand you and support you.
Yes. Yes.
Yep,
We love
yep.
that.
Alrighty.
All right.
There's the
Thank you
email again.
all. Yes. mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com. Thank you so much, y'all, for tuning in, for supporting us. Again, comments, feedback, um, complaints,
Anything you want to say
anything you want to say. We embrace you. We'll accept your complex human
it.
being.
Yes.
Um, so let us know. Hit us up. Let us know what you've thought so far about the episodes that have been out.
Alrighty. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
See you next time.
Ooh, I almost hit end the thing. Where's the banner? Where's the banner? No. Give me 1 second here.
No.